What's up, y'all? We are back for another episode. We are on episode 22 of Banter from the Bench podcast. To kind of tease tonight's episode, we are going to talk about the thing that everybody was watching, the NBA Cup. There's obviously some sarcasm there. Who won the NBA Cup? Was it actually fun to watch? Are they going to keep doing this moving forward? NCAA football, for the teams that aren't in the playoffs, there are a lot of moves happening both with coaches and with players in the transfer portal. Of course, we'll dive into Heisman talk. Some NFL recap, pretty standard. We do this every week. We talk about the biggest storylines. And then with March Madness about 3 months away, a little less than 3 months away at this point, we're going to talk about some NCAA basketball, maybe some teams and some players that we like. So, as always, plenty to dive into. So, let's get ready to roll, y'all.
Sounds great.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff to cover. Diving into college basketball for the first time, so that'll be fun. And yeah, a lot of good stuff here. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. And like Kevin alluded to in our intro there, we're going to start off with the NBA Cup. So the championship happened on Tuesday night between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Milwaukee Bucks, where the Bucks won the NBA Cup, the all-coveted NBA Cup. We were just kind of talking trash about the Bucks not that long ago, talking about how what are they going to do. So it's only fitting that they just somehow managed to win the NBA Cup. But what are your thoughts? Do you like the in-season tournament? Do you think they should keep it? Should they get rid of it? What do you think about the in-season tournament?
I think it's fucking stupid. I think it's honestly so dumb. Here's why. I mean, there's still games, right? Like there's really nothing different about it other than the fact that these games count towards the in-season playoffs, let's just call it. But there's no incentive for fans to watch. The players, the winning team, each player gets like $500K. Losing team, each player gets like $200K. Cool, you incentivize the players, but what about the fans who are going to tune in where you're making your money? You know what I mean? Like there's no incentive whatsoever for the fans to tune into these games. So I think for that reason, I'm not really a big fan about it. I think something like mid-season or in-season could be fun, but I don't think this is the move. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think from trying to think from like the commissioner's perspective, maybe he's wanting to give the fans a little bit more competitive basketball early on in the season, which I can't even tell you if it is that much more competitive or not because I don't really watch it. But one thing I know is the courts suck. They all are just weird,
ugly,
and I have a hard time like watching games on them. But I don't know. I mean, when you look at it, like winning team gets $500K per player. Like for a lot of those guys, that's nothing. Like they're not gonna get out of bed and go crazy for $500K or play harder for a chance to win $500K. Like sure, it's a little bonus, but I mean to rookies. Them. Yeah, for guys like rookies or guys that are maybe G leaguers or, trying to cling to a roster spot, it means a lot more. But then those guys aren't the ones that are playing usually. So I don't know. I think it's it was an interesting idea. I just don't really care for it. I know some people like it. I feel like in due time there will be maybe some different format of it, or maybe we don't even have it at all anymore. But one thing that I think is interesting, I don't know if you've seen much about this, but they have now kind of started looking at the All-Star game too. And I don't know if it's for sure or not, if it's been finalized or they're still working through it. So I apologize if it has been finalized or not, but they're looking to do like a little tournament for that too now. And that I will say for the All-Star game, I do like that better.
Kevin Durant was talking shit about it. He doesn't like it at all. Yeah, man, I wish they would find a way to incentivize the fans because like that's who's tuning in to these games that, you think people are going to love, but the courts are really ugly. They're not easy on the eyes. They're not fun to watch games on. I think it'd be cool if they could incentivize the fans in a way of like the winning team, like let's say Milwaukee Bucks fans. Okay. So like every away game, there's going to be like 2,000 seats at, like, I don't know, let's just say they're playing the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. Well, 2,000 of those seats are going to be specifically for Milwaukee Bucks fans so they can travel to Chicago and watch the game. I don't know. I'm just spitfiring, but like something like that where fans could be like, okay, that could be kind of fun. I can get behind that. But it just feels like it's just they're kind of just like throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks. So I hope they change it up.
I mean, I don't know if it were me, I would just be like, they should give all fans $1 million. Why tickets? Who cares about that? Give the fans $1 million.
If only I'd watch every game.
Give Bucks fans $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that they need to tweak this or just get rid of it completely.
Trying something different. I'll give them credit for that. I feel like the NBA for a bit was really popular, and I feel like it's just kind of losing popularity over the years. So this is probably an effort to try to increase it. I don't know if it was the best way to do that, but I mean, props to them for trying something different.
Dude, before we jump from the NBA dunk contest this year, I'm really hoping that they consider and he considers Modis Buzelis. I really hope he's considered for the dunk contest because this dude can throw it down, and I feel like he'd actually have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I think with the whole Mac McClung situation, they are open to more like guys who don't necessarily. And Buzelis is playing; he's getting minutes every night, but they're more open to guys like him that maybe everyone isn't completely aware about, or guys that aren't the stars or the up and coming stars or the superstars. So, yeah, I think that'd be fun. I don't really know who else will do it at this rate, but we'll see. I would love to see like Zion Williamson do it, but that requires him to actually move and exercise, and I don't think he's interested in that. So
he might not even be able to dunk right now, for being honest. I'd like to see some cooler names in it, but I guess we'll wait and see. All right, let's jump to NCAA football. So there has been a lot of shuffling going on right now. I think a good place to start is with some recent hires for head coaches. And I'll let you talk more specifically about this first one. Dan Mullen became the head coach at UNLV. Rich Rodriguez is actually going back to West Virginia. Thoughts on these hires? And obviously Dan Mullen, a former Gator coach. You can speak to that more than I can.
Yeah, I think we'll start off with Rich Rodriguez so we both can kind of touch on him. Rich Rodriguez is very interesting. I saw as well that West Virginia was interviewing Brian Hartline, the wide receivers coach for Ohio State, for their head coach position, and then named Rich Rodriguez a coach a couple days later. I'm not always crazy about teams going back and hiring someone that they've already had before. And this isn't on our list, but this is another guy that falls into that situation. Scott Frost is going back to UCF as their head coach too. Maybe Scott Frost is a little bit different. That's kind of a lot less of a pressure job. So he might be able to do pretty well there. But I don't know. If I was a WU fan, I would be like, really? Like I would feel like we settled on Rich Rodriguez when we really didn't have to. I mean, it's not like WU is a terrible program right now. They've had some decent teams over the years, but I just would have expected them to make a little bit more splashier or more sexier of a move, and was kind of surprised to see that they went back to Rich Rodriguez.
Here's what's surprising. I was just looking at his timeline. This is his fourth stint there. I thought it was his second.
I did too.
He was a student assistant in 1985. He was the offensive linebackers coach in 1989. He was the head coach from 2001 to 2007, and now he's coming back to be the head coach again.
So second stint as head coach.
Second stint as head coach, but he had some time, like even when he was the offensive linebackers coach, he then went to Glenville State, Tulane, Clemson, back to West Virginia. And then since West Virginia in 2007, Michigan, Arizona, Ole Miss, Hawaii, Louisiana, Monroe, Jacksonville State, and now back to West Virginia. So this guy's kind of been a journeyman. I don't know if
Where
that's
was
good or bad.
where was he at last? What was his last job?
Jacksonville State.
Head coach?
Yeah.
Huh. I truly didn't know. I was just curious.
Before that, dude, he was at Louisiana Monroe for a year. He was the assistant head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach. And before that, he was an analyst for Hawaii.
No, that's the dream. That is the
Yeah.
dream job.
Should have never
Um,
left it.
do you know what they say though, Kev? Country roads, take me home.
Oh yeah. Okay. Nice.
He's back.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher. I don't love that move for West Virginia. I think they could have done better than that. But
Yeah.
let's jump to Dan Mullen. What are your thoughts on Dan Mullen?
I'm not gonna lie. I love this hire for UNLV. I think it is a pretty much no pressure job for him. They're getting a guy that is a national champion coach. They're getting a guy that can put up points like crazy. Even when he was the head coach of Florida, they had some dynamite offenses, and granted, a lot of that had to do with some of the players that he had on his teams there. But the dude knows how to call an offense. He knows how to put up points. I honestly thought he was going to be in the mix for Michigan's offensive coordinator job. Maybe he was, and he didn't want it. But I thought he was going to get a prominent job again. So I was a little surprised to see he took the UNLV job, but I think he'll do some good things there. One tough thing with Dan Mullen is recruiting. He's not the biggest fan of it. He doesn't enjoy it maybe as some other coaches do. But now, I mean, you look at the whole, hey, I'm in Las Vegas. You have the Vegas factor, which can recruit for you. So I think he'll do good. Not a whole lot of pressure on him there. I think he'll get UNLV up and running pretty quickly. They're already a pretty decent team. And I think he'll find success at that level. So all in all, I think it's a really good hire for UNLV.
Dude, you literally have Bishop Gorman in your backyard. They're nationally ranked number 5 in the nation for high school football. So he should be able to pick kids off from Bishop Gorman and kind of, fill in holes from there. But I like it. I think for UNLV, I think this is a really nice hire. For Dan Mullen, I think it's a to be determined, right? Like, the reason I say that is because we don't really know what Dan Mullen's end game is. Like, does he want a big head coaching job again? Or does he kind of want to sit under the spotlight a little bit with a job like UNLV and just enjoy coaching at UNLV? So I think it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out for him in the long term. But for UNLV, I think it's a great hire. I think that's a pretty big splash for them. His name was being floated around with a ton of teams for offensive coordinator positions. So I think it's a really nice move for them. Heisman, I'm going to let you take the reins here on the results of the Heisman. Maybe you can give your thoughts, and then I'll jump in and give my 2 cents.
Yeah, so Travis Hunter, wide receiver / cornerback from Colorado, won the Heisman. Final votes were Hunter, number 1, Ashton Genty, running back from Boise State, number 2, Dylan Gabriel, quarterback from Oregon, number 3, and Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami, number 4.
The GOAT.
You know what? I think Hunter certainly deserved the Heisman. It is just hard to replicate what he does by playing wide receiver and corner, and he's done very, very, very good at both of those positions. We might not see a guy like this come through college football again. I couldn't even tell you the last time we did.
Dion, probably.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe his coach. Besides that, I truly don't know. So I think that definitely warranted him winning the Heisman. I do kind of feel bad for Ashton Genty because any other year he probably runs away with it.
Yeah,
that dude was incredible.
No pun intended.
yeah, right. I did not even think about that. But yeah, it tough for him. And you know what? I like Ashton Genty a lot, and he grew on me a lot during the Heisman weekend because he showed up. Everyone showed up in suits. He showed up in a Boise State tracksuit, and they were like, "Hey, why'd you do this?" They're like, Well, they said we could do it if we wanted to, and I just wanted to represent the school and the people that helped me get here. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. Good for you.
Such a
Um,
vibe. Yeah.
so I was like, you know what? Like, good for him. He was probably just happy to be there, being a running back from Boise and flying under the radar until this year. But obviously, he's going to be going high in the NFL draft, so his chapter is just starting. But in terms of overall voting, I mostly agree with it. I do think Cam Ward probably should have been ahead of Dylan Gabriel. Just from a statistics standpoint, Cam Ward is better than Dylan Gabriel. I'm gonna go out on a limb without even looking it up. I'm gonna say across most categories, he's probably
It
better
is.
than him.
It is.
I just think Dylan Gabriel got the bump of being the quarterback of the undefeated number one ranked team.
Yep. That's my exact takeaway. I have zero problem with the top two. Zero whatsoever. And if Hunter wasn't in it, I'd have zero problem naming Ashton Genty the Heisman winner this year.
Yeah.
I think Cam Ward got really screwed, finishing fourth overall with as little votes as he did. I mean, you'll see it when Dylan Gabriel goes to the NFL. It's going to be rough. I don't think he's that good. Cam Ward's numbers across the board. There might have been like one category that Dylan Gabriel was better in, but across the board, I think Cam almost had like 10 more touchdowns too. He had, I think it was like close to like 400 more yards, like just really, really crazy. So I felt bad for Cam Ward in that regard because I feel like he got disrespected a little bit. But I think it's two things. One, you lose two of the last three. That's part of it. Two, having Miami attached to your name can be the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, and I think that probably played a part here a little bit, and kind of hurt his chances. But overall, no argument whatsoever with the top two. I think that they got that spot on, and Travis Hunter should have won it, and I think the whole world would probably agree with that. So I'm happy he did.
Yeah. Now, before we move on to our next topic here, I would suggest that all listeners pause this podcast right now, go back in time and find our college football preview podcast, listen to who we predicted were going to be the Heisman winners, and maybe take a listen to who I predicted.
Okay.
Your boy got it right.
Okay, yeah. Well, you got first dibs. I probably would have put his name up there too.
I might have got first dibs, but I'm pretty sure I named him like third or fourth out of the guys I picked.
Yeah, I know I had Cam Ward up there. I think
I had Carson Beck. I think I had Dylan Gabriel. I had Travis Hunter.
Neither one of us picked.
I had another. No, we did not. I had a running back. I can't remember who my running back was though.
I did too. I don't remember who it was, but yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if I picked. No, I didn't pick Jeremiah Smith. There's no way he would have won it this year.
No.
We'll have to go back and look. That'll be a fun little
No,
exercise.
you know what? I know I picked Luther Burden. That was another one of mine. He sucked this year to his standard.
Yeah, that was so bad, dude. Oh, I picked Shador as one of them because I thought his dad was gonna just make his stats pop off. But yeah, we'll have to go back and look. All right, let's jump over. We'll stay in football. Let's talk about NFL. Week 15 recap. Kind of just a lame, week of football that we had. I mean, some of the bigger storylines. Obviously, we're always going to talk about Pat Mahomes. He injured his ankle, didn't finish the game. They say he's week to week. I don't really know what that means because
he's slated to play right now.
Whenever there's Pat Mahomes injuries, dude, they always just like sugarcoat things and just kind of like brush things under the rug. So you never really know what's going on.
I was watching that game when he got hurt. And so he left the field. He really couldn't like put a ton of pressure on his ankle. And then he left the field and they tried to like hide it. But like he was carted from the tunnel to the training room or whatever. And it's like, dude, there's cameras everywhere. You're not hiding anything.
And I'm pretty sure he had an air cast on too, if I remember correctly. So
probably some AirPods too. He maybe had in.
Sean's bringing the jokes tonight, apparently. Yeah, I am curious to see how this will affect the playoffs, and how agile he is for the playoffs. But
I don't know who they're playing. I don't know what their schedule looks like the rest of the way. I don't know how much of a cushion they have for number one seed, but I'd really consider resting him this week.
Texans, Steelers, Broncos are their last three games. So and the only home game that's left is this one against the Texans, and then it's at Steelers, at Broncos. So
Let's
um,
see.
it just depends on locking up the first overall seed so they can get the bye, because the bye would be huge for
So
him.
they got Buffalo at 11-3. That's the next closest team. So theoretically, you could rest him this week, and then you just have to take care of business your last two games.
Yeah, which
Assuming you would lose without him.
for them is no gimme this year. You know what I mean? Like they're barely
Yeah.
winning games, but they're winning. Um, Honestly, dude, I feel like there's a new game of the week every week, and lately it's revolved around the Bills. The Bills took down the Lions in Detroit. It was a hell of a game. Just jab after jab after jab. Did you get a chance to watch that?
I watched some of it. I honestly started losing interest and stopped watching when the Bills went up big, and then all of a sudden Detroit's back in it. I
That's
did
because
call
they
the
were.
Bills to win that game, though. No,
Yeah,
I'm
we
on
both did.
fire.
Yeah, we both did. That's because the Lions were biting kneecaps. That's why they started just biting the kneecaps of the Bills, and they started coming back.
They're
Um,
biting themselves with all their injuries now.
Dude, honestly, I was pretty impressed. Jared Goff threw for almost 500 yards. He had 5 touchdowns himself. That's a hell of a game for him.
He, he's having an incredible year.
I don't know what Josh Allen. Oh, Josh Allen threw for 362, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. So he had 420 total yards, 430 total
Nice.
yards. So
420. He did that on purpose.
he probably did. So another big game for Josh Allen, who's probably going to win MVP this year. No surprise there. Eagles won the Battle of PA. They beat the Steelers and they improved to 12-2. Kind of a quiet 12-2 this year. I feel like years in the past, like the last couple of years, whenever they've done really well, a lot of people are talking about the Eagles. This year, they're not talking a whole lot about them, other than apparently there's drama between Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. That's about all.
It's cool now. It's cool.
Yeah, apparently.
Did you hear there was a report? Apparently, they dapped each other up in front of everyone just to show that they're cool.
Yeah, okay. That just tells
Some
you even.
Sometimes you just got to dap someone up and let them know, hey, we're cool. And then everyone gets it. They're like, oh, them that just did that, they're cool.
Who knew, man? Who knew it
Yeah.
was that fucking easy? Yeah, I mean they look really nice at quiet 12-2. We'll see if they kind of fall apart in the playoffs again. And then finally, Buccaneers just beat the shit out of the Chargers. The Bucks have looked pretty nice lately. I actually didn't check into Baker's numbers on that, because usually it's like 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Okay, 4-1. He had 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, so he had himself a pretty nice game. Mike Evans went off, 159 yards, 9 receptions, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Mike Evans is just good. He's just so consistent.
every year, man. And like, there's nothing like crazy impressive about him, but he just gets the job done. And then, let's see. You want to talk about? I kind of just ran off on some storylines. Do you want to talk about what's going on in the NFC right now?
Yeah, well,
Once you wake the fuck up.
we'll stick into storylines here, and we'll jump around a little bit because it's relevant, and we're talking about the Bucks. But Falcons made a very interesting move. They're sitting at 7-7 right now, behind the Bucks, who are 8-6. So that's still, odds are getting thin, but that's still, they have a shot. So the Falcons benched Kirk Cousins to name Michael Penix Jr. their starter. Cousins has struggled this year. There's no doubt about that. I think his touchdown to pick ratio is maybe like +4, so he's not really the Kirk Cousins that we're used to or that they were hoping for. Penix Jr., very interesting situation, especially being an older college prospect. Guy that has played in big games in college, especially at the end of his career. Now stepping into a really big moment in the NFL. I think it is still, even with that, a very tall ask for him to go in there and say like, hey, let's salvage what we can salvage, and maybe we can go on a run here. So it'll be a pretty high pressure situation for Michael Penix Jr. We might learn a lot about him quickly in a good way if he goes in and he succeeds. He's got all the weapons to be able to do that, but he's just got to go out there and get the ball to him and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Your thoughts on Michael Penix Jr.?
I would love for him to succeed in Atlanta. He just like screams Atlanta Falcon to me. Like it'd be so sick to see him just take over that city. I was pulling up the Kirk Cousins numbers, and he's got 18 touchdowns, 16 picks. So +2 on the
Yeah.
year, which is really bad. The other thing I was looking at is the remaining schedule of the Falcons. So Penix does have this going for him. He's got the Giants this weekend, at the Commanders, which could be kind of tough for him. And then he's playing the Panthers the final game of the year, and that's in Atlanta. So 2 of those 3 games are very winnable games, which, it will be nice for him, assuming he's the quarterback throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see. I mean, I liked Michael Penix in college. There was a lot of people that were calling for him to be like the top quarterback taken, or at least number 2. So I kind of hope he finds success. I'd like to see him do well in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting. And if he's anything like the other rookie quarterbacks, we might be in for a little surprise with how good he is. So it's been a good class so far.
Yeah, it has. NFC. Let's talk about the NFC.
Yeah.
So it's looking pretty loaded, man. You've got the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles all sitting at 12-2, and they're all fighting over this number 1 seed. Who do you think's going to finish with the number 1 seed this year?
It's interesting how close it is, and I'm just pulling up some schedules here real quick, so bear with me.
It's not the
Where are we
Bears.
at?
He wasn't dropping any clues. Bear with me. It's not the Bears. Just a little
No,
teaser
no,
for you guys.
no, I don't think the Bears are going to get the number 1 seed. I'm trying to get the Eagles schedule here. Okay.
Eagles have won
No.
10 straight. Vikings
Eagles
have
have
won
won.
7 straight.
Eagles have won 10 straight. They got Washington, Dallas, and New York. That's easy.
Yep.
Maybe 1 loss in there, maybe not.
It is divisional games, though, still, too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. If anything, they'll lose to Washington, but they handled them pretty good last time. We know the Lions and the Vikings will play each other one more time. I think the Lions will end up getting it. I think their loss to the Bills, despite their injuries and how decimated their roster is becoming, I think that loss to the Bills is just going to motivate them to just push through the rest of the season. I know we're not there yet. We're not into the Chicago topics, but I am terrified for what is going to happen to the Bears with the Lions coming off a loss. I am very concerned that the final score might be 100-0.
I'm not. You know why? Because if it is, then there's a better chance Poles goes too. So, you know what? By all
We'll
means,
get to that. We'll get to
by
that.
all means, go Lions. I'm going to take the Eagles here. They've won 10 straight. I just think they're healthier than the Lions are. And I think that it could end up biting the Lions in the ass. Now, I would love to take the Lions. If they were healthier, it'd be a no-brainer for me. But
Yeah.
they've got some really winnable games. I mean, all 3 of their games, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, all 3 of those games are very winnable. Again, they are divisional games, so you never know what could happen. But they've won 10 in a row right now. They're just absolutely lighting the world on fire. So I'll take the Eagles here.
You're really buying into how much dapping up your bro can improve your team.
I'm team dapped up, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
To
be
be fair,
surprised.
Eagles would have been my second choice. I think as fun as the Vikings have been, I don't think they'll be able to beat the Lions. And I don't even know what the rest of their schedule look like. So that's just one game I know that I think they're going to lose.
Yeah, I would have taken the Lions number 2, so we just had that part flip-flopped. Let's talk about a storyline that, honestly, man, I don't know if we'll ever see this again in the NFL. Just an absolutely arrogant human. Devondre Campbell, if you're listening, you're a piece of shit. Devondre Campbell left the game mid-game. I think it was the 3rd quarter.
Late in the 3rd, from what I understand.
Late in the 3rd quarter, just decided he was going to leave the game because I think he got benched or wasn't playing, or got pulled for a certain play or whatever it was. Just refused to play in the game. Kyle Shanahan said what he said. There's been a lot of teammates that have said what they wanted to say about it, and they've kind of thrown him under the bus, which rightfully so. But really, just an interesting situation that I don't know if we'll ever see again in the NFL. What's your take on Devondre Campbell?
pretty wild situation. You're right. It was a game where the 49ers were banged up at linebacker and they asked him to go back in and he did refuse to. And then he left the field and their head coach, I'm drawing a blank, Shanahan, called him out to the media. Kittle called him out to the media, and rightfully so. I think when you're paid to play a game that not everybody gets the opportunity to, and you probably got people that are below you on the roster who would kill to be in your position, and you're just going to selfishly say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go back in the game. Like, unless you're hurt or there's something going on, there's no excuse for that shit. So clearly the 49ers felt the same way. They suspended him for the rest of the season, and I'm guessing that he played in his last game as a 49er. I highly doubt they'll bring him back. As we're sitting here, I got a notification that said Kyle Shanahan regrets signing Devondre Campbell. So that tells you everything that you need to know.
Yeah, I mean, he's also 31. His career might be over now at this rate.
Are you saying people who are 31 years old, their careers are over?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It's pretty fucked up, dude.
Yeah, I know, and I'm okay with it. Yeah, I think his career could be done. I just can't imagine a team being like, "Oh, Devondre Campbell, he's a guy we got to have on our team." Like after that bullshit. So, just really, really interesting story. That again, I don't know if we'll ever see a situation like that again because, like you said, like, dude, you've got guys who tore ACLs back-to-back years and would kill to be on the field, and then this guy just decides, you know what? No, I'm not going to play, and I'm going to leave the game. Literally walk into the locker room right in the middle of it. So. Yeah, really, really bizarre. Let's dive into some college basketball. Now, I'll be honest with you, I haven't not watched a ton of college basketball this year. I know Tennessee's been a powerhouse. Obviously, Auburn, they've been consistent for a while. Your Florida Gators are looking really nice so far. SEC, there's a ton of SEC teams who are just dominating. You got Tennessee, you've got Auburn, you've got Kentucky, Alabama, Florida. I'm just going down the top 25 right now. Texas A&M. Who am I missing? Ole Miss. And that might be it. Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, number 14. So SEC dominating the top 25 right now. Obviously, Duke's going to get a lot of attention, just because they have the potential number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft this year. But other than Cooper Flagg, they've kind of looked like Duke so far. They're 9-2. This is pretty standard for them. But yeah, I'll get off the soapbox. I'll let you talk about your take from so far in college basketball.
Yeah, my big take was just early on, a lot of SEC dominance going on. And when the last AP poll came out, you had 1, 2, 3 undefeated teams in that poll. All of them are SEC teams. Shockingly, one of them is Oklahoma, who you really haven't heard a whole lot about this year, but the other 2 are Tennessee and Florida. I know Tennessee had a pretty close nail biter with Illinois in one of their last few games, so it's not like Tennessee's just walking over bad teams. That's a good win for them. Same thing goes for Florida. They beat North Carolina. They beat Virginia. They beat Arizona State. Like, they've been tested and they're handling their business. But overall, the thing that's exciting is it seems like there's no clear-cut best team. A lot of good teams, a lot of teams that are in the mix. And SEC play, when that starts up, not to make this an all SEC thing, but when that starts up, that's going to be fun. And I know just because being a fan of Florida, like, their first SEC game is Kentucky. So right off the get-go, like, you get a game like that, and we're going to keep learning a lot about these teams. But overall, it just seems like, we have a lot of really good teams that any of them have a chance come March, as long as they stay healthy and things keep trending the way that they're trending. So it'll be fun to follow for sure.
There's going to be a lot of televised SEC games this year on ESPN, and the SEC tournament's going to be just a fucking battle, dude. It's going to be nuts.
I think one thing, speaking of SEC, one thing that surprises me is Arkansas not being ranked right now. Getting John Calipari, getting a lot of Kentucky recruits over there. You would, I don't know what their record is. I'm sure it's probably pretty good, but you would think that they'd be a mainstay in the rankings. They were a good program before he got there. So it's kind of interesting to see them not ranked as of now. But I don't know, it's
Yeah.
fun. Like you look at the bottom of the AP poll, you got Cincinnati on there, you got Memphis on there, you got Dayton on there, you got San Diego State on there, Clemson's on there. So a lot of fun teams, a lot of different teams. Some of those have been good recently. San Diego State was I think they were in the title game not too long ago.
Yep.
But yeah, it's shaping up to be a fun college basketball season, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean Arkansas is still 9-2, right? Like they're still putting together a really really nice season. I'm just looking at the SEC standings right now, and this is like literally insane, dude. Oh my god. Um, the overall, let's see, overall win loss. The worst team in the SEC right now is South Carolina, and they're at 8-3.
Nice.
It's just insane. Arkansas is 9-2. They actually were. If we did a full rankings, they'd technically be at 27, so they're just sitting outside the top 25 right now. But yeah, man, SEC it should be dominating the bracket this year. I think because if your Gators keep playing the way they're playing, they should have a pretty nice seed. I could see them with like a top 4 seed, maybe even higher than that. So it'll make for fun March Madness, that's for sure. So we'll learn a lot as the season goes on. Some teams will start to separate themselves. Obviously, injuries always happen, so we'll see who pulls away.
I know you mentioned you haven't really been watching a whole lot of college basketball, but um, just kind of with the topic here, Cooper Flag's obviously been a guy that people has labeled as the number one overall pick for over a year now. Do you feel like he still should be? Do you feel like there's anyone else you would take if you had the first pick? Do you feel
I
like
could
you're not ready to answer
see
that?
I mean, a little bit. I mean, I've also seen a lot. I don't know if he's eligible for the drafts. I think he would be. I've seen Dylan Harper's name out there a lot with Rutgers. He's averaging 23, 4, and 4 right now.
I love the
Um,
Rutgers kids. I love them.
I don't know if that's sarcasm or not. I
No,
can't
no, it's
tell what's
100%
happening.
serious.
Oh, okay. I was like, what's going on here?
They're, I,
You,
they're, I don't care what their record is going into March. I'm picking them to go deep.
yeah, dude, he's having a really nice season. He's averaging, like I said, almost 24 points a game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see his name, especially if they have a nice run in the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised to see his name surface, but I think Cooper Flag, with just how much media he got right out of high school, naturally is going to get a ton of attention at number one. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Dylan Harper is definitely making a case. I personally, like, if I had the choice, I would go with his teammate in Ace Bailey from Rutgers. He's averaging 17.9 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and he's shooting 46.7% from the field. I've watched a little bit of Rutgers, and I hate to make comparisons, especially to players of the caliber of who I'm going to compare him to, but I see a lot of Kevin Durant in his game. I see a similar build. I see a similar kind of attack style with the way he can score and create shots and stuff for himself. So despite him being statistically the lesser of the two of the Rutgers guys, I really like his game, and I think he's going to translate really, really well to the NBA. Not to say that Harper won't. That's just my personal opinion.
The dude's 6'10" too. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. I mean, there's always guys that light the world on fire during March Madness and kind of work themselves up the draft board. So naturally, that's going to happen again this year. But those are just a couple names that we like right now in this very moment.
I do think this is going to be a pretty good draft too.
Thank
I
God.
think if you're a team, you're looking to get right about in the top eight. If you can get in the top eight, I think you can land a pretty good player. There's a lot of good guys going out this year, or
Yeah, well,
should
the
be going
Bulls
out.
the Bulls need to, or else they have to give. I think it's top 10 protected, or else they need to give their pick. I think it's to the Spurs. I want to say.
Yeah, it is the Spurs. They'll get top eight's loaded. They'll get pick nine.
I'm sure they probably will, or 11, or 11.
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
Yeah. All right. Before we dive into Chicago topics, obviously this is a Chicago team, but it's still a national storyline. Cubs traded Cody Bellinger to the Yankees for a right-handed pitcher, Cody Poteet. interesting because the guy's 30 years old. He spent time as a starter and a reliever. Did you do any homework on this guy? Did you take a look at his minor league and major league page?
He's about as average as they come.
Yeah.
Really, what this trade is it's a salary dump for the Cubs, and it clears up outfield logjam for them. So obviously, everyone knows they just traded for Kyle Tucker. They already have Pete Crow Armstrong, who just defensively alone has to play in the field for them because he's so good there.
Yeah.
And then they have Seiya Suzuki, who was rumored to be in trades, but I would say at this rate, he probably isn't. I don't know. Maybe he is. The Cubs have a young outfielder in their system too. That's supposed to be pretty good, but obviously time will tell with that. But yeah, just a good move for the Cubs to be able to clear up a log jam there. And for the Yankees, Bellinger will be a good fit there. He'll hit a lot of home runs there. Um, here's the funniest part about, and I don't know if you know this, the funniest part about this trade about Cody Bellinger going to the Yankees.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Cody Bellinger's wife is Giancarlo Stanton's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. Makes for a
So
real awkward situation.
yeah, I heard about that after it went down, and I was like, this is incredible.
Yep. Yep. It'll I mean the Yankees clubhouse always has something going on, right? Like there was the Juan Soto stuff that kind of surfaced as teams were working to sign him, and the security guard, treating his family poorly. So there's always interesting things happening in the Yankees clubhouse. But let's actually dive into Chicago topics, and we can actually stick with the same sport. The team on the other side of town. We'll dive into the White Sox. They were mentioned as one of the teams that are in on the Japanese pitcher Roki Sasaki. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Is this the player who is coached by Tadahito Iguchi? Is that why there's like a slim chance that the White Sox?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, when I say slim, I mean like 1% chance that the White Sox can actually get him.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty crazy that we're here, and that we're even a team he's considering. I don't think they end up with him. There have been some rumors or rumblings that while the Dodgers are appealing, while the Padres are appealing because they can throw a lot of money at him, that he might be interested in a little bit of a smaller, low-key kind of market. Obviously, Chicago is not a small market, but the White Sox pretty much are. So that would line up kind of with that. But it's all rumors, right? It's hard to know what these guys are really thinking. It's even harder for the guys that come from overseas and things like that. So I don't know if I'm going to fully believe stuff like that, but the way I look at it is a positive thing that the White Sox have an opportunity to present a pitch to him. And even though it's most likely not going to happen, maybe he bites on it and he's like, you know what? That sounds pretty good. I actually want to go to Chicago. I can go there and be the number one starting pitcher for that team and be their ace for years to come. And, I'm not going to talk myself into it, but just the opportunity they have to be able to present it is a good thing. And it's nice that Chris Getz is taking that opportunity because we all know who is above him. He could very easily just be like, I'm not going to do this. But the fact that Getz is willing to say, you know what, screw it. What if he falls in love with what we offer him, even though he probably won't. But good for Chris Getz, good for the White Sox. Definitely not going to sign him, though.
No. Well, honestly, dude, all we need to do is bring in Tadahito and maybe like Shingo Takatsu, and maybe we have a chance here. But yeah, no, we're not going to fork over the type of money that this guy's going to need. I mean, if he wants to pitch for a team that has like 20 fans at each game and doesn't feel any pressure whatsoever, then like roll on over the White Sox, baby. We will welcome you. But
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen. They did make another move. It's honestly, well, actually two now. Two catcher moves here. They acquired Matt Tice from the Cubs for cash considerations. He was traded to the Cubs in November, and then they also just traded Chucky Robinson I want to say it was to the Angels. Do I have that right? Yeah,
You do.
traded Chucky Robinson to the Angels. Both, I mean, just small name catcher guys, but moves are moves, man. I don't know. That's how the White Sox offseason is going to be. It's just small names and little
It's
moves.
depth. It's depth that they needed. It's a position that they needed depth at. Obviously, there's no surprise we have a couple prospects who are viewed to be the long-term answers for catcher. So for them to just take on a guy like Tice for next to nothing for probably a year, if he even makes it the full season, yeah, that's fine. It's a fine move. It's not going to win him a ton of games. It's not going to lose him a ton of games. So it's a move that had to be done. And yeah, like you said, nothing sexy, just what the White Sox way is going to be. They also did sign a relief pitcher today, Brees Wilson, I want to say his name is, from the Milwaukee Brewers. Got him for like 1.05 million or something along those lines. Don't know much about him personally. Briefly looked at his numbers. Looks like he's a decent reliever coming over from Milwaukee. That's a good pitching organization. So I'd guess he's a guy that's going to make the major league team and be around in the bullpen this year, and maybe someone they hope that they could flip at the deadline. But another move that they made, nothing that's worth breaking down or over analyzing, but just since we're here, something worth bringing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like he had a 4.04 ERA last year. He's a right-hander, so they're going against their usual ways here. But this is how the White Sox offseason is going to be this year. They're not going to spend a ton of money on guys. It's just going to be another rough season next season. And I don't even know. Do you know if we can net a top pick next year?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so we can suck and finally get rewarded for it. Great. Speaking of sucking.
Before we get into that, speaking of the draft, when they did the MLB draft lottery, this would have been brutal. The combination that the Sox had would have ended up getting them the 6th overall pick if they were able to actually get the top pick this past year. That would have been miserable. I would rather pick 10.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. At least pick 10 and get a chance at a higher pick the next year. You know what I mean?
Right. Like 6 would have just been miserable, and then they would have been stuck with an opportunity to not have a top pick the next year. So,
yeah,
fingers crossed they get lucky, because Lord knows we need it.
They'll probably just overslot. I'm sure at some point. Like that's really like, if they want top value, that's probably what they're just gonna have to do. On the other side of sucking, so the Bears played the Vikings. Did you know that?
I turned it off when it was 3-0.
It was last week I called the Bears game a shitstorm. This week, I don't even know what the fuck adjective I can use to describe the Bears
it would
game.
It would be like a shit tornado. A shitnado.
Like, just, man, I'll let you take reins here, because I kind of was speechless. At the end of it, I just, at the end of the day, I feel really bad for Caleb Williams. I am even flirting with the idea of like benching him the rest of the year, because he talked about this week how he feels like he got in like 3 car accidents, and that's how his body feels because he's gotten sacked so much. So
if he thinks he feels that way, try being a fan. It's even worse.
Dude, it's like, man, I just feel really bad for the guy. But yeah, anyways, I'll let you say what you need to say.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with you. I feel bad for him. I live in North Dakota, so I'm around a lot of Vikings fans. One of my coworkers came up to me and was like, "Oh," after the game, she was like, "Oh, that was a rough one." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, it typically that's what I expect. I'm not shocked, but she made the comment. She was like, "Yeah, like I get that, but your quarterback, he looks like he's going to be good. He was moving around, he was making plays." I was like, "Yeah," but then I was like, we have games like that, and I am paranoid for how he's mentally going to be moving forward, because that is a lot on him. And I think he even had a quote recently where he said, like, "I've never been through anything like this before." And granted, it is harder to win in the NFL, so like it was going to be like not maybe this bad, but it was going to be tough no matter what. But yeah, just kind of that just made me think of that, going along the lines of feeling bad for him. But man, the game in general just never were in it. This team is lifeless. Thomas Brown stinks as a head coach. I feel bad for the guy. He's been in a really tough situation in terms of starting as a passing game coordinator or whatever he was and working his way up to offensive coordinator and working his way up to head coach. It's just not working out whatsoever. I don't think that's necessarily the biggest indictment on him, but also like he was given that hand. He wasn't going to turn that opportunity down.
Right.
I hope that whoever looks at him doesn't put a ton of value into what he's doing right now. And I hope whoever looks at him to give him that opportunity is not the Bears, respectfully. Um, every single coach that is on this roster right now, I don't want to see them ever step foot in Hallis Hall again. It's just, it's bad. I don't know. From a record wise, we've seen worse. I don't know if I've ever seen like this much disconnect between coaches and players and the mistakes and just the stupid freaking situations they always find themselves in. Here's my number one takeaway from the game. Kirion Amagagi had to start at left tackle. I'm sure that was Ryan Pohl's decision. They had Larry Borum on the roster. Through two drives, honestly through one drive, you looked at what the Amagagi was doing, and you probably could have been like, maybe he's not ready for this. Let's pull the plug. What do? They keep that guy in the game to get his ass beat, to get thrown all over the turf, to get busted, to get blown up at the line of scrimmage by Jonathan Grenard. And for whatever reason, it never registered for them to maybe throw some help his way, maybe put a tight end over there with him to be able to help block Grenard. They just left him out there to basically die that game, which is very unfortunate for him. Another guy who I maybe worry about mentally moving forward, because that's tough to come back from, especially for your first start. But why the hell don't they look at Larry Borum? I know they don't like him and they don't want to play him, but when a rookie like that, who's supposed to be a project, is struggling so bad, why not just make the switch? It truly could not have been worse with Borum in there. And I am 100% confident saying that it could not have been worse.
Dude, and if it's not Borum, there's got to be a guy on the practice squad or a free agent or something. Like, why are you not looking anywhere you can to try and protect Caleb? Like, I think at the very least, Caleb would be like, cool, I respect the fact that they're trying to plug in new guys constantly to try and protect me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Dude, if it wasn't for Amageji's play as is, the penalties, dude, my God, he could not stop collecting penalties. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. I could go in there and I think do a half decent job compared to what you're doing right now. Like, this is so bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was just like, I don't want Caleb to get sacked, but at the same time, you know how many times he's been sacked this year? Like, what's another one? Honestly, he's been sacked probably 6,000 times this year.
Not only that, it's also like the dude was clearly playing scared because he looked like it, and that's why he kept getting penalties. Like, just playing scared, and I'm like, man, you have literally one job, is to protect your quarterback. That's literally all you have to do. Everybody else on the offensive line, for the most part, I mean, even Coleman Shelton looks better. Everyone else on the offensive line can like decently do their job, but man, that was really
Did you
rough.
see the draft video after the draft? What he said? It's been
No,
all over the internet since this game. He
no.
had an interview and they asked what it would be like protecting Caleb Williams, and he said he'll never get touched with me over there. That's for sure, or something along those lines. And I'm like, oh man, I want to feel bad for you, but you can't be saying that stuff.
we are just such a meme factory this year because Caleb also said to Tory Taylor, you won't really have to punt that much this year.
Yeah,
Oh man, we're punting so
yeah.
much.
Speaking of being a meme factory, did you hear about the whole Jalen Johnson debacle during the game?
No.
The equipment like managing team like just forgot to put the C on his jersey, so people thought he was stripped of his captaincy, and it had to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's just like that's when I say there's so much disconnect. It's just the whole organization minus like a couple of players should just leave and never come back.
Dude, it's like when we were growing up, we just sat and would like laugh at the Lions. You know what I mean? Like the Lions suck every year. They find a way to lose games. They can never get it together. They're just a laughing factory. That's us. That's literally us now. Like we are just fucking up in every aspect of our organization, and it's bad. And to kind of put the bow on things here, the Bears' remaining schedule. Sean already said that we've got the Lions. The Lions
100
on
is
Sunday.
100 to 0.
At least. We have the Seahawks, which are playing some good football right now. Hate them. And then we get to end the season at Green Bay, which will
Yeah.
be nice and ugly. So it's not going to get any better. So buckle up, Bears fans.
We'll
Last
probably
thing,
we'll probably finish with 4 wins. I don't think we win one more game.
I honestly I wouldn't be surprised. And honestly, cool. Let's just get a better draft pick and draft nothing but offensive linemen. Um, let's
They'll
talk about
probably
Ryan
draft
Poles.
they'll probably draft Jackson Dart
I'm
or
sure.
whoever.
No, another tight end.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Ryan Poles. Do you think he's the
No.
right fit for the Bears at GM? And I don't even want to say like who should replace him because like the
I
Bears
don't know.
never
I
seem
don't
to
know
bring
who
in.
should replace him. I know we have a good internal candidate in Ian Cunningham. A lot of organizations view him as the next up and coming GM.
Yeah, he's
Um,
interviewed for a ton of GM openings.
I do not think Ryan Poles is the GM for the Bears. And this is tough because with the new head coach coming in, here's what's going to happen. Poles is either going to get an extension or he's going to get fired. There's no in between because they're going to have to line him up with the head coach so that things can be like standard and even with them too. Or he's going to have to get fired so they can bring a new guy in to line up with the head coach and do the same shit that we just did a few years ago. I'm going to be honest with you, Kevin. For a while, I thought Poles was okay. I thought he should get another opportunity. I really thought he did some good things for the Bears. I'm learning a lot about him this year. There was an alarming story written about him that went in the Chicago Tribune that I learned a lot from reading as well. And I just don't think he's cut out to do the job. If it weren't for him getting very lucky in getting Carolina's first overall pick, he would be doing a horrendous job as a GM right now.
Yeah.
Caleb looks good. Caleb's the future. There's no doubt about that. People
Imagine if
outside
he
of
didn't though.
That's what I'm
Imagine
saying.
on top of it.
People outside of Chicago, they believe it. Ryan Poles is a former offensive lineman. He can't build an offensive line to save his life. He drafted a guy like Kirian Amagaji, paid Nate Davis $30 million. I don't even know who else to think about offensive line right now. Paid Montez Sweat over $90 million. Granted, it's 1 year into his contract, but that looks like shit. Really, I think two moves that come to mind, I feel like that he's done a good job in, excluding Caleb and excluding drafts, signing TJ Edwards and signing Jalen Johnson to an extension. But the Jalen Johnson move, that was kind of a no-brainer at the time. Like, you really had to do that because who the hell are you going to get to replace him?
Yeah.
And he vocally said he wanted to be in Chicago, so you had the upper hand there in those negotiations. But other than that, like, I truly don't know what he's done to warrant him sticking around. I think there's been a lot more bad than good. And the hard part is like, who's going to be next? Because I don't want to have to go through this again. Because if we go through this again soon, like we're screwed forever. Because
Yeah.
that means everything is burning down. Caleb's probably going to another team, and we're going to be back to freaking square one.
Dude, you might as well add Tremaine Edmonds and Nate Davis to the bad signings
Tremaine
too.
Edmonds,
Like
yeah, that's a good call
he
too.
has not looked good. And you know what? Like I think Ryan Poles is going to get fired for a couple reasons. One,
For hurting us, all of us fans.
one because that this I truly believe the next GM's contract is going to be in line with the head coach's contract. I think the Bears will do something similar that they did last time with him and Eberflus. The other reason why I think, aside from like his bad signings, which I'll get to in a second, the remaining schedule, dude, you've got the Lions, you've got the Seahawks, and you've got the Packers. All three of those teams are more than likely going to make the playoffs. If we had like the Jaguars, the Panthers, maybe the Cardinals, or like the Colts or the Titans that we played earlier this year, if we were playing those three teams or a combination of three of those teams at this point, then maybe he'd be able to save his job, but I don't think he'll be able to.
I hope
he
not.
he got a lot of screen time during the game, and I think he was very strategic on like the way he carried himself, but I think he's already feeling a ton of pressure. Um,
I think he was on Indeed on his laptop.
he might as well. But you look at like some other moves he's made. I mean, they obviously signed Cole Kmet to a long term deal. He hasn't been featured. I think he has like 5 catches all year. Like literally, he hasn't been
Yeah,
featured at all.
I will say
Um,
the Komet deal probably will end up being good. They're just not using him the way that they should.
no, not at all. Montez Sweat, I think will be fine. I'm not worried about him. He also has very little help on the line. I mean, Gervon Dexter was like his best friend, and now he's hurt. So the line needs a
Same.
ton of work. The line needs a ton of work, and I think we'll probably sign more than draft a defensive line this year. I think
I
Montez
think we'll
Sweat will
do
be.
both.
I think Montez Sweat will look nice again. TJ Edwards was a great move, but like Tremaine Edmonds, like I said, really bad signing. Um, Kevin Byard, so, like he's looked more good than bad, but he still gets burned a lot. And then you look at like draft picks, right? Like you look at Tyler Scott, dude doesn't even play.
Yeah,
Who's the Tennessee guy that we released earlier this year that wouldn't.
Velus Jones. You know what? Good for me because I remember when they drafted Tyler Scott, I was like, oh, look, we got another undersized receiver by a GM who can't identify receiver talent. And everyone was like, no, Tyler Scott's good. I'm like, our GM has clearly shown he can't evaluate that position. Huh,
Like,
turns out he
dude,
can.
it's so bad. It's so bad. And like you bring in a guy like Mercedes Lewis, right? Like, yeah, he's a vet, but like that dude gets so many flags whenever he gets in. Like he gets flagged, I swear to God, almost every time he's in the game. So I I'd be surprised if Pohl sticks around. Long story short, and you know what? I'll save the rest of the rant for it once we make a move one way or another. We'll kind of give our reactions based on what we think, and let's save the rest of this podcast for Blackhawks talk because I know we're past an hour right now. So, um, Sean, what's happening on the Blackhawks front?
Uh, some fun things are actually happening on the Blackhawks front. They're still very bad, so don't worry, guys. We're not turning the corner quite yet, but they called up Frank Nazar. Some prospects and some players are playing a little bit better under Anders Sorensen, so looks like a new system and stuff is starting to pay off. Kevin Korchinski, defenseman, one of the top defensemen. Well, he's not even a prospect anymore because he played about all of last season, but formerly one of the top defensive prospects in the Blackhawks system. Played last year, roller coaster of a year. Defense is tough in the NHL, very, very tough adjustment for kids. He's come up. He has looked very confident the last few games that he's been up. Looks to be playing really, really well so far. So excited to continue watching him. Connor Bedard's starting to catch fire here. He just played in his 100th NHL game.
That's
And
crazy.
I don't know off the top of my head, but in terms of most points within first 100 NHL games, he was about top six. So 6, 7-ish. So while people are like, oh my gosh, Bedard's struggling, he's not really. But still, he has definitely been playing better since Sorensen's got here. Before Tuesday's game, before Wednesday's game, over his last 3 games, he had 2 goals and 3 assists. So definitely making some moves here for the Blackhawks offensively. And then Teuvo Teravainen, the guy who started off hot and has been quiet, he's starting to pick up again. He's got 6 points in his last 2 games for 1 goal and 5 assists. So he's also playing a little bit better too. So definitely have had some positives come, but the team's still going to suck. They got a long ways to go, but it's nice to be able to see some of these guys playing. Sorensen's not afraid to give young guys an opportunity. He's got Frank Nazar playing on the first PowerPoint line, so good for him getting an opportunity to play with that first power play group. But yeah, so just gonna continue watching and keeping an eye on these young guys, and yeah, that Drew Commesso got his NHL debut.
Yeah.
Went okay. He was great early on, and then there was like a 4 minute period where they just blasted him with like 3 or 4 goals. And but I mean, overall, like big picture wise, I was very impressed with the way he handled the New Jersey Devils. They're a good team. Just got into some trouble, and the floodgates opened very quickly. But
Yeah.
overall, I thought it was a pretty encouraging start for him. So
Yeah.
some exciting stuff.
I know they were looking forward to Drew, potentially being a part of the future. So it's nice to see that. They've got another goalie in the minors too, don't they? That's supposed to be pretty solid.
He's in college right now. Adam Guyon, he's with Minnesota
Yeah.
Duluth. He's had a lot of mixed results in college. He was really, really good early, and then I got to watch a little bit of him when North Dakota played them. Um, and they, or maybe I can't remember if it was North Dakota or Minnesota. It might have been North Dakota. They got him out of the game quick.
Because he did
So
pretty well. Was it the Olympic trials or something like that?
World Juniors,
That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. I know he kind of like lit the world on fire during that, and everyone was like, oh my God, this guy's could be a freak goalie. But
yeah, that really helped like propel his draft stock. I'm trying to pull up his page here to see what he's looking like now. Oh, I don't want game log.
because I think
He's got
he's
he's
still
played
pretty
in
young.
12 games. He's got a 3.50 goals against average and a 88.2 save percentage. So
Not good.
not horrific, but I mean, it's his first year of college. So
How
um,
how old is he?
20.
Okay, so he's still really young, but yeah, I mean, still you'd
He
like
will
to see.
be in college for a couple of years. He'll be there this year and next, obviously this year. He'll be there next year for sure, and we'll see after that. So
I feel
um,
like that's pretty common for goalies, though.
he's a little raw too. He needs the experience. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna pulling up something else here if it wants to load.
and we've got Drew
Speaking of
Comesso for the meantime, at least. You know what I mean? Like,
Siki, speaking of prospects, and since I got the hat on, Sasha Boisvert for University of North Dakota, and a guy the Blackhawks took in the first round of this last draft is off to a incredible start in
yeah,
college this year.
I did hear
He's
about
uh,
this.
he's played in 19 games for North Dakota this year. He's got 17 points on 8 goals and 9 assists. North Dakota started him off on their first line, and he's dropped down to their second line. They tinkered around a little bit with their lines, but he looks incredible. I haven't watched a lot of North Dakota. I do tune into them when I can, but from what I've seen, he's been one of the more impressive like offensive guys on that team, and that says a lot for a program like North Dakota and a program that has a handful of guys that are NHL prospects on their roster. So he has definitely been a big bright spot this year.
That's good. I mean, they need it, right? Like they've got a ton of picks. Clearly, they need to keep building around Bedard, and I know they've got plenty more picks coming up. So they need to keep stacking talent, and they need this talent to actually turn into like high quality NHL guys. So that's good to hear. So we've got a fun little thing that we wanted to end with here on this episode. Sean came up with this himself, so credit goes to Sean. But we were just looking at where Chicago sports are right now, and this is across the board. So Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, Bulls, Bears, and I don't think I missed anybody. Um, do you think that this is the worst that the Chicago sports landscape has ever been in your lifetime?
I think it has, as far as I can remember. Um, I truly don't think there's been a time where every team's been this bad at the same time. I feel like for most of my life, there was at least one team that was really good when everyone else stunk. I couldn't tell you when these teams, I'm 31 years old. I couldn't tell you when all teams have been this bad at one period of time. And that even includes the Cubs, too, which I'm not a Cubs fan, but, um, it's sad. I mean, like, we wait around every Sunday to watch the Bears. They typically lose. They typically crush our soul and ruin our life. And then it's like, what's our next escape? Watching the Blackhawks. They have Connor Bedard, but besides that, They usually lose most games too. Bulls, they've been in a terrible situation for like 6 or 7 years. Um, White Sox have just had the worst record in modern baseball history. Cubs are just like very reluctant to spend money and not really trying to field the most competitive team in a winnable division. And it's just like there is no break from the how bad these teams are. So it's pretty rough, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you hit on a lot of points, right? Like at some point in years prior, at least one of the teams is good, right? Like early 2000s was kind of like White Sox, that bled
Bears were
into,
good.
yeah, that bled into the Bears being in the Super Bowl in 06,
Cubs had some
07.
good years.
Yep, the Cubs had some competitive years, and then you look into like the early 2010s. Derrick Rose won the MVP, and the Bulls were even pretty good before that, right? Like with like a Kirk Heinrich, Chris
Yeah, they were a
Duhon,
playoff team.
Ben Gordon era, right? Like they were frisky. So, and then the Bulls kind of held it down for a bit there. Cubs obviously
Blackhawks.
won. Yep, Cubs won their World Series. Blackhawks won their 3 Stanley Cups between 2010 and 2015, I believe it was. So, you had some good teams mixed in there, but now there's just, dude, there's like literally nothing to look forward to, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got some good players on these teams, right? Like for the Bulls, I think right now it's going to be like Modest Buzelis. And for the Blackhawks, you've got Connor Bedard. For the White Sox, you have literally nobody except prospects. Cubs just got Kyle Tucker, so maybe that's like their shimmer of hope. Bears, they have Caleb Williams, but like nothing has come together. And that's the most frustrating part about Chicago sports is like they'll have like one player or like a couple good players, but it never all seems to come together. So I would agree with you. I think this is hands down the worst Chicago sports has been collectively in our lifetime, and I don't even think it's close, to be honest.
Yeah. It's tough. As someone that enjoys watching teams even when they suck, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to feel something for once.
Yeah,
But
right.
I got Florida basketball, I guess, so we ride.
At least you have that. I don't even have basketball. I mean,
Yeah.
ISU might be a frisky team this year. They're about to be 7-4. I'm just watching their box score right now, and they've got some fun players on their team. So who knows? Maybe they'll be the Missouri Valley team this year, but I don't know, man. It's a small school, so we'll see. But that's on a happy note. That's all we have for this episode. Sean, I think we'll probably be off next week, considering next
Yeah.
Wednesday is Christmas Day. We'll take off
Maybe
next week.
maybe the next two we'll see with New Year's Eve and stuff too.
Yeah, so we'll either see you guys in a couple weeks or in 3 weeks, depending on New Year's. And at that point, again, we'll have a ton to talk about. So thanks for joining in as always. We appreciate the 4 or 5 people that listen to us. YouTube, we have more. I don't know where you people come from, but we love you.
Mhm.
And that's it, guys. So thanks for tuning in. Take
Go
care of
Notre Dame.
yourselves.
Beat
take,
Georgia.
take care of yourselves. Have a great, happy, healthy holiday, and we'll see you guys on the other side.